Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Coffee Cocktail channel with me, Dan Fellows. And today we've got a very special episode where we're going to be learning all about the story of one of the quintessential coffee cocktails of all time in the whole world, the Espresso Martini. And I'm joined by a very special guest today, which is Bea Bradsell. Hey Bea.
Hi. Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Bea Bradsell. I work for a company called The Drink Cabinet, and I have worked in the drinks industry for about 20 years now, but more than that, I am the Espresso Martini's little sister. So by that I mean my father was the creator of the Espresso Martini, Bea Bradsell. He created the Espresso Martini in Soho on Old Compton Street at a bar called Soho Brasserie in 1984.
Which is what we're going to try and recreate today.
We are.
And your dad created some other pretty cool cocktails.
He did. There was a few different, so the Bramble's probably the second best known, but we've also got the Treacle, Russian Spring Punch, Wibble tends to be the bartender's favourite at the minute.
Bea is also an exceptionally great bartender as well. You made me one of the best drinks I've ever had.
Oh.
Fig and honey.
Oh, that one was delicious. I think it got me my new job, so that's
nice.
good. So, the Espresso Martini is a story that many people have heard. There's a lot of mystery around it. Well, the basic story is a model walked into a bar and asked for a drink to wake her up and f her up. Then the story kind of goes into who was the model. Everyone thinks it was Kate Moss or Naomi Campbell. All of these different supermodels get brought up.
And who wasn't it?
And it was not Kate Moss or Naomi Campbell.
Contrary to popular belief. Right?
Contrary to popular belief. That's what everyone thinks it was theirs, but they would have been far too young. I think I've worked out before, they would have been like 11 and 13. So I think one of them was already modelling, but definitely not old enough to drink.
Responsible service of alcohol.
Yeah, of course. Always.
No 13-year-olds.
No 13-year-olds.
If you're 13, don't watch this channel.
No. YouTube will have words.
Okay, deleted.
The truth is, Dad took the name of the model to the grave, but that means that you have more time to talk about the whole rest of the story. So kind of putting it into the whole of the context is, that day they'd had a new Illy coffee machine installed, and what happens when you get a new kit? You don't know how to use it and you make a mess. So they had a bar absolutely covered in coffee grounds. It was getting everywhere, and that's kind of how they were set up for this day.
Coffee on the mind, right?
Coffee on the mind. And then the model, the unnamed model, walked up to the bar and asked for a cocktail to wake her up and f her up. It was the 80s, sorry. Not quite the 90s yet. It was the 80s, so the gin renaissance hadn't quite happened yet, which meant that vodka was the drink of choice. That was definitely, any fashionable young woman would be drinking vodka. So we've got our coffee all over the bar, so coffee's the natural choice. We've got vodka. Next thing that's going to get added to that would be a coffee liqueur. That really simply just got thrown in a shaker, shaken up and poured into a glass over ice, and that became the Vodka Espresso. Not the drink we know and love today, that was the original, and then over several years Dad worked on it and created his perfect recipe, and then as it was the 80s, everyone was drinking some kind of flavoured martini, and actually moving into the 90s as well, finishing off the recipe. Yeah, you got your appletinis, your lychee martinis, and your espresso martinis in that quintessential V-shaped martini glass. And that was the drink that we kind of knew and loved. Also had another form of the name. Sometimes you'll hear it called the Pharmaceutical Stimulant. Exactly the same drink, just give it a new name for Damien Hirst's restaurant and bar, The Pharmacy, which was in Notting Hill and is now the M&S at Notting Hill.
There you go, sightseeing place for you to go if you're in London.
Drink history.
It's a beautiful M&S, I love it. So what we're going to do today is something really exciting. We're going to try and recreate those original specs from Dick's recipe as closely as possible. So in front of us we've got some pretty cool ingredients. We've tried to recreate the brands of the original specs. We've gone as far back as we can with the spirits and the coffee, and we're going to try and recreate that flavour profile for you today. So obviously some things aren't possible to taste from the 1980s, such as coffee. 1980s Kahlua is pretty hard to come by, but we've managed to get the coffee, spirits and sugar as close as we possibly can to those original specs. So the first thing we want to add is coffee, and what we know about the coffee.
So it was definitely Illy coffee.
Smooth segue.
It was, yeah, so we've got, that's our coffee of choice. It was always, my dad had alongside the story, it was his new Illy coffee machine, and then it was his coffee of choice throughout his career. Whenever he was doing an event, he'd always try and make sure it was Illy coffee that he used. But it was very early in the days of bartenders understanding coffee. No one really knew what they were doing with the machine as much as the team at Illy tried to train everyone. So you were getting this kind of much more bitter, deep coffee that's you know, maybe a bit burnt, maybe just still learn, you know, however when you're learning to use a machine, you're getting these new flavors coming out. But they were working with what they could make for themselves at the time.
And equally, I think the recipe really complements that. So we might have a little bit of bitterness from the coffee, but because we've got other sweeter ingredients, we've got the length from the vodka, kind of balances out, gives a really nice texture and balance in the drink. So we're going to brew this on an espresso machine, and as if by magic, we have our double, like you said, probably Bea Ristretto, 25 mils was the spec. So we're going to make a double batch today. So we've got 50 mils of our Ristretto brewed on an espresso machine, which is quite an interesting thing for a bar to do in the 1980s. Obviously, bars now have some incredible coffee offerings. We've got bartenders kind of keen to learn about coffee skills. So brewed, got 2 of those in there, 2 tight doubles, 50 mils in total, 25 mil per drink. And then we're going to talk vodka.
So my mother's family are Polish, not my dad's family, my mother's family. But my dad had a great affinity with Poland, absolutely loved it. So always believed in a good quality Polish vodka. Wyborowa was often his vodka of choice, but any good Polish vodka will normally do. Also Belvedere, anything like that.
You've got to keep your in-laws on side.
Got to keep the in-laws on side. He definitely made many, I said, Polish Martini was made for my granddad, which was various different Polish vodkas in a cocktail.
But Wyborowa's cracking vodka. I've had this bottle for quite a long time. I don't drink a lot of vodka straight, but I think I've been preserving it because it makes a killer martini. It's very easy drinking. Some vodkas obviously have a lot of burn and a lot of kind of heat to them. This is super creamy, really good body. I think it works really well with espresso because it stands up to it really well. I
think that's a thing that you do get from a lot of Polish vodkas. You get a really beautiful creaminess, and you almost get some of the kind of the rye in there. You get a lot of the grain really coming through.
Yeah, it's a banger. So how much do we want in there?
So we want 50 mils per cocktail because it is a boozy number.
And then we must talk coffee liqueur. So we've got a vintage bottle of Tamarind. Yeah, fun fact, when we first opened this bottle, the cork just basically disintegrated and snapped, and still tastes great. You had a bottle opener on it. True professional. We've actually had a taste of this and it's delicious. So this is a bottle of vintage Tamarind. Obviously the packaging is different nowadays, but it's kind of a really interesting thing. It says this is made with Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee, which is quite a notable coffee and quite an expensive coffee to have in coffee liqueur. But we actually tasted this and it's pretty delicious.
It's got a boozier kick than you would have today. It's definitely got a little bit of a higher ABV. It says it's 55 proof. It's got a bit more of a kick, but it's a really beautiful, smooth flavour.
I was quite surprised. I didn't expect it to be very nice.
And definitely it suggests drinking neat, and I definitely could drink that neat.
Yeah. So I recently tried 20 different coffee liqueurs, which I'll link above. And this would have actually done really well. I think as far as mixing coffee liqueur, it goes really well because it's got that full body and intensity. As a sipper over ice, it'd be really good. It's got sweetness, but it's also got plenty of body and kind of that intense coffee flavour to back it up. So I'm really impressed by this. And if ever you cross me in the street, ask me for some Tamarind from 20 or 30 years ago and I might be able to help you out. So a blend of coffee liqueurs. Any particular reason?
So Dad kind of believed in each having their own use in the cocktail. So one for kind of punchier flavour, one for body. And I think the blend between the two brought the best of both worlds. But also he was working towards thinking about the perfect kind of dessert style drinks, and he thought of the Brandy Alexander as the one that he wanted to mimic. So you've got two very different flavours. You've got in a Brandy Alexander, you've got brandy and you've got cream, and then you've got linking ingredients that kind of bridge your palate.
Bridge and balance.
Big fan. So he was doing the same thing with vodka and coffee, quite dissimilar flavours, so bridging the gap between them, and he thought each coffee liqueur brought its own little thing to the party.
That's such a good ethos. So obviously I have competed in coffee and good spirits. So coffee, great spirits. How can you bridge the two together and balance them? And that's kind of what I try and do with every drink if I possibly can.
So with Tamarind, we're going for 10 mils per drink, so we're going to use 20 mils today.
And we're trying to get as close as we can to those original specs. It's much harder to come by vintage Kahlua, turns out. So we have
brand new Kahlua. We've gone for the opposite. It's the newest that you can get, but it's still the same delicious recipe. This one has, it's there for a lot of the body and a lot of that kind of big punchy coffee flavour. Both of the coffee liqueurs are rum-based. Tamarind obviously from Jamaica, as it says, and Kahlua is Mexican rum. 15 mils of Kahlua per drink, so that's going to be 30 in this one.
Last but not least, sweetener of some kind. So I'm going Monin cane sugar syrup.
So my dad was a great believer in sugar syrup. You can make your sugar syrups at home, or you can use delicious, beautiful Monin sugar syrup. You've also got a range of different sugars you can use. If you want to do something like a little bit of a kind of a rounder flavour, you can do the Demerara. You've got loads of things that you can play around with. Also, if you want to add impart a bit of flavour, you can use a flavoured sugar syrup. But my dad always believed that, you know, using a syrup pre-made rather than playing around with sugar at the time. Just historic bartenders would not be doing it. They were busy. When you're busy, you don't want that. But also always in his espresso martini, it was sugar to taste. It definitely depends on how you like your coffee. If you tend to be more of a black coffee drinker or an espresso drinker, you might not want as much sugar in your drink, and the coffee liqueurs will be enough for you. But if you do tend to drink a sweeter coffee, or like a frappuccino, you can add some more flavour to it, a little bit more sugar to it. But just a dash per drink. And it's definitely, it's to the taste of the drinker.
We like coffee, right?
I like coffee.
Especially at night time.
Oh, yeah.
Just what you need. Big, strong coffee.
I never need to sleep again. Well, I mean, you have a young child, so you probably needed many of
anyway, yeah. This is it.
So now we're on to the very important stage of shaking the drink. I am up from my ice elevator. So now we want to shake our espresso martini. Now, one thing about the espresso martini is you do need to get that beautiful head on the espresso martini like we all love, you need to shake it very hard. I've always stole it from one of my friends when I watched him doing a training, and he liked to tell people you need to shake it like you hate it. So put all of your day's stresses in here. It's your ex-partner, it's your
Tube strike.
It's
2 hours on a bus today.
So yeah, it is. Today, this is getting the full brunt of the tube strike to it. And we are gonna just shake it as hard as possible.
Shake it like you mean to be. Woo! Go, Bea! Woo! I've delegated everything very well today. I just stand here and present, and Bea does all the work. Ooh. Living the dream. Shall I get you a glass, Bea?
Maybe.
I can do that. There we go, see?
Oh look, we transported a glass from the 90s.
I contributed, yeah, true. Fine strained?
No fine straining, not in the espresso martini. Daiquiris, obviously fine strain. A lot of drinks, but not for the espresso martini. Dad always likes to pour it straight. And you've got that beautiful creaminess coming through, and you're gonna let it settle.
It's like chocolate mousse.
Like it does.
Yum.
And you know, you've got that whole process going, like we've got a good Guinness, you want to let it settle, you want it to take its time. We're also going to give the perfect garnish. So 3 coffee beans.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Really nice. Foamy head coming now as well.
Our perfect finish to the drink. We've got our health, wealth, and happiness.
Look at that. So there we have the original finished Espresso Martini. That's the name of it, wasn't it?
That was the last one. And hopefully, with our vintage spirits, this would be really tasty.
So, to recap, we've got 25 mils of double tight espresso. We've got 50 mils of Vibrev, is that good?
It's delicious.
We've got 10 mils of Tamarind, again vintage, 15 mil of Kahlua, and a dash of sugar syrup to taste. Shake it like you hate it. Garnish with 3 coffee beans.
Perfect espresso martini. So you've got that really robust coffee, really comes through, but the vanillins from the coffee liqueur and the kind of smooth maltiness from the vodka, you just really get this beautiful round flavoured drink.
It's so good.
So tasty.
And like, you don't really get espresso martinis too much like this anymore. I feel like specialty coffee and like lighter roast coffee brings a different dynamic. But in here, you've got everything turned up to 11. So loads of coffee flavour, loads of positive bitterness, like that dark chocolate bitterness, really kind of balanced sweetness, got plenty of booze in there, it's banging.
and it's smooth and tasty and beautiful. And that, I mean, the glass makes all the difference. You want to drink a martini from a martini
in the
glass.
90s, although I was like 5, but
Yeah,
even still.
Maybe I was drinking them.
So there we have the original Espresso Martini by the legend that is Bea Bradsell. What a legend. So make sure you try this at home if you can. This would work with up-to-date spirits as well. In the next episode, we're going to be delving even deeper into the Espresso Martini, breaking down each different ingredient, with your permission.
Of course.
Thanks.
Experimentation is key.
This is true. And the Espresso Martini, we agree, should have espresso in it. So we're going to be playing around with that. We're going to be trying to recreate this flavour profile with different ingredients, and I look forward to seeing you then. So in the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to be updated with all the new stuff happening, which is going to happen very soon. And make sure you like, share this with your friends. Anyone who loves an Espresso Martini will definitely love this. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode. But most of all, thank you very much, Bea Bradsell.
And thank you for having me, Dan.
My genuine pleasure. So we'll see you soon, and thanks very much for watching.